Well, good afternoon, everyone. The March 20th, 2025 Board of Health meeting for Nantucket is now in session. Welcome, everyone. We have some issues on the agenda. We'll have a lot of discussion. I just want to remind you all to please direct all your questions through the chair. We tend to get a little informal on this committee sometimes, so let's try to keep it a little more organized, if you don't mind. Just to remind you all that this meeting is being recorded, both visually and audio-wise. And are there any public comments on any issues that are not on the agenda? Anybody behind me? No? Okay.
All right, no hands.
No hands?
No hands.
No hands here, so we'll move on to the agenda. At the request of staff, we will continue item number 9, which is some amendments in the Board of Health regulation that still needs a little review and discussion internally before it comes to the board. So I would just ask for a vote that we continue that hearing.
You want a motion to?
Motion to continue the hearing?
Second.
On the regulations of Chapter 223. I hear a second from Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chairman says aye. We will continue that till next month. Okay, we have 57 Nantucket Road, nitrogen loading credit.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. You want to go to the approval of minutes?
Sure. Any questions, additions on the minutes from last month? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman says aye, the minutes are approved. Now let's go on to the nitrogen loading for 57 Nantucket Road.
Okay, I see someone from, Bracken's office, Ryan Maxwell. Okay, Ryan, you're up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep,
Go ahead.
we could. Okay, sorry. All right, now go. Ryan, you should be good.
What are we waiting for?
I'm not sure. He was on. Are you there, Ryan?
I heard him.
Yeah.
Okay. Charles, we have a technical issue.
Well, he's,
If he's a presenter, you can promote on the panelist. You see the little dots there?
yeah,
Promote the panelist.
okay,
You can do that for any of your presenters.
okay.
There he is. Yeah, now it says he's rejoining, so click to the, you should appear. There he is.
Okay.
So he should be allowed to talk.
Yeah, I had him.
Can you
All right,
guys
yes,
hear me now?
Ryan? We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Not sure what happened there. Sorry about that. But anyways, for the record, my name's Ryan Maxwell with Bracken Engineering. This variance request is for a property in the Hummock Pond watershed where your sewage flow is limited to 110 gallons per day per 10,000 square feet of lot area. This is an existing 3-bedroom house with a conventional 3-bedroom septic system on it. And the lot is almost 31,000 square feet. The applicant would like to put some additions on their house and increase the number of bedrooms in the house to 4. And they'd be installing a new 4-bedroom septic system that incorporates a microfast tank. The microfast system would provide a reduction in nitrogen loading that's almost 50% of what a conventional system would provide. So this variance could be granted with a net benefit of reducing nitrogen loading on the property. And I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the department?
I don't have any questions. As Ryan said, this is in the Hummock Pond watershed, so, these variances been approved before, back with, the nitrogen reducing system, so was the main goal for this, so, in my opinion, until the board makes a policy or regulation to really limit these to 10,000 square feet, it's still benefiting from the addition of the nitrogen reducing technology, so.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm gonna take
Go
my
ahead.
my soapbox, and I will every meeting about these. Little by little, we're gonna make the island uninhabitable, one variance at a time. And I actually was glad to see that the select board kind of brought that up at one of their meetings recently. That it's not just about nitrogen, but more people is more power use, more water use, more wastewater, and nitrogen isn't the only issue in wastewater. And you can only do this so many times before at some point we push the system too far. So, looking at a single item, it's like, yeah, this is fine, but we're doing this all the time. And at some point, we've got to get together with all the other departments and start thinking about this seriously. You can only go so far. So, I'm done.
I agree with you completely. But we now have this before
Yeah,
us.
this is before us, and I got to focus on the item
Down
before us.
down the road, we have to seriously think about total environmental change, not just individuals. It's like, remember 2 years ago, I did an assessment of swimming pools, and I concluded that an individual swimming pool was actually okay, but when you add up 1,000 of them, then you get to significant environmental impacts. So do I have a motion from the board?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
So they're doing, is the system that is there failed? I missed that information. Or they're just digging up the old system to put in this new system so they can get another bedroom or, I think
That's
we've
correct.
discussed before, like digging up a system that's working because they want to build a new house, put in a pool, whatever. I know that's not this particular one, but I agree with Carrie. Because I think we're now saying you're pulling up a system that's working. Like, how old is the system that's there? Is it on the newer side?
Ask the question.
Is the system that's there working and
I
needing to be replaced?
don't have the answer to that, I don't know if we have a recent Title V inspection of that. I would assume so, but, as you said before, essentially, yeah, they're just taking up the existing conventional system to put in an IA to allow them, the enhanced treatment with the sewage in order to get, add another bedroom onto the house. So you hit the nail on the head with all that, and, as Carrie pointed out as well, I would just suggest to the board until it's, becomes a policy or change the regulation, these have been approved in the past, so that would be my suggestion to the board, perhaps maybe moving forward, but for this particular application with the enhanced treatment, I don't see a problem with it.
Isn't this similar to what we dealt with out in Nantucket on Pops Lane, that they were supposed to replace it but didn't replace it and now wanted to put in a bigger one? I know that was a little different, but
Right.
this is, we don't, I guess, do the engineers know if this system, how old it is or anything like that?
Yep, so this system was installed in '96, so it's getting on the older side at this point. I don't see that it has failed, but it wouldn't meet current setback requirements for the work they want to do on the property in its current configuration.
Just a quick question, and again, this is not going to screw anything up, but is a portion of this property wetlands?
Yes.
Let's one person at a time, please. Carrie's got the floor.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I'd asked, is a portion of the property wetlands, and I think you said yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess it's,
Go ahead, sir.
Jim, can you just hit your microphone off?
if the system is fine, what does he want? What's wrong with the system? Why can't you leave it the way it is? Did he just want an IA system so he can get another room?
That's what he wants.
Okay.
And it's been policy of the board in the past, we have approved these, but maybe we need to start.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think when this technology came out, it was great, and now I think things may be catching up a little bit since this technology's, getting to be 25, 30 years old. Obviously, this was a big advancement in treatment and everything, but, however the board wants to consider number of bedrooms on the island.
That's fine. I just need a motion one way or the other on this variance request now.
I think that this is a much larger question than this particular issue before us today. And if we're going to have these kinds of discussions every time one comes up, we need to find a way to discuss our larger policy on this. When can a system be replaced? And all of these things. So I think we have to divide, as somebody said earlier, into two pieces. What is before us today and what is a much larger, because we're going to keep kicking the can down the road unless we have that much larger discussion.
Well, I'm getting a consensus of the board that we have to, at some point, put this general discussion on our agenda
Yes.
and
That's what I'd say.
see if what we can do from a regulatory point of view, et cetera, and an environmental point of view. Because all your statements are correct. We have approved this type of thing in the past. And I don't think this is the time to take this particular applicant to start a new policy without proper input from the community and discussion. That would not be fair.
And just is another, and again, brought it up last month or whatever, but percentage of wetlands that are being included to calculate square footage, and wetlands probably aren't places where we should be putting wastewater into. So again, as we talk about that bigger picture of relooking at how we judge, I mean, I would think that is another factor to look at, is our wetlands being calculated in as part of the land that is available for, the square footage available for leaching. But I'm not,
We'll talk about
Yeah.
long-term strategy. I'll talk it over with the health director for future agenda items so that we can properly prepare for it. It's going to be a long discussion, and we need some information and data, et cetera. So let's just get on with life. And could I have a motion for this, please?
motion to accept the variance as stated.
Do I hear a second? No seconds? We have a motion and no seconds. No one seems willing to, so the chair will second that. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor of the variance, say aye.
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 No.
Okay, vote 4-1, variance is accepted.
Thank you.
38.5 Lovers Lane, nitrogen loading wetlands protection district. John?
So, yeah, basically same exact
Same thing.
scenario, just different zone. This is in the wellhead protection district, so, recharge to the aquifer, really. But same thing, I think 3 bedrooms going to 4. I see Dan Malloy is available to speak if you want to talk, Dan.
Well, I think the application speaks for itself based on what you just heard in the last one. So we've got a just shy of 30,000 square foot lot in Lover's Lane. We're asking to use the IA system credit to go from 3 bedrooms to 4. And that's pretty much it. And we have town water available. We're only here because of the Wellhead Protection District. And this is, again, something that the board has routinely granted this request.
Any questions from the board? Do I hear a motion for?
Well, has the system failed? How old is the system?
This is for a new construction for a new house.
So what, didn't you
Why
just
don't
say
we-
they were going from 3 bedrooms to
Yeah.
4? So how are they
No,
going?
I'm saying normally what you would have seen in this property is 3 bedrooms. We're asking to go for permission to put a 4-bedroom system in with an IA system versus 3.
So it's new construction. Nothing.
It's new construction.
So they just want that extra bedroom that they can't get with the ground cover zoning? So
Yes.
they can get it if they do this?
Yes. Any other questions from the board? Do we hear a motion? Oh. We have a reluctant board here today. This has not been unusual. We have done this in the past to other properties. And I think we're starting to feel guilty a little bit, but we have to deal with today.
I think that, for me, I think, if you don't mind me speaking.
Go right
I think that a lot of what I read about the stormwater and all of the contamination to our aquifer from PFAS makes me think a lot harder about these sorts of things, like, is 3 bedrooms not enough? Or is it just that it's gonna sell more for 4 bedrooms? Or like, it feels a little like we're selling our soul, like, oh, you can put in this better system so you can get that extra bedroom that you wouldn't have gotten from based on zoning, but it's now more, as Carrie said, more wear and tear on this, on our tiny, on our tiny environment that, like, we live on a giant sandbar. Like, we do have to protect and think about what level of contamination are we okay with and what are we going to allow? And it feels like this is very much a loophole that people are saying, oh, well, I'm going to just yank out that old system because I want to put in a bigger house and a pool, or I want to put in more bedrooms, and at what point do we say, like, this is what our environment can handle and keep our ecosystem safe and continue to have clean water, hopefully in the deeper part of the aquifer? And I think when you see all of the discussion that happened with Surfside Crossing, it makes you think about this all more, like, how much wear and tear can we take?
Other comments? Go ahead, Rock.
Each time we review one of these variance requests, the board asks for our recommendation, which we provide. And one of the things that John and I talk specifically about is whether or not this particular project represents a negative effect on the environment. So that's why he puts in there. So in this case, we don't see it, and I understand all the other conversations around that, but we'll continue to review these as if they are, is there a negative effect or no negative effect?
Fine. I understand. I think we're getting at a crossroads of the board. And we have to have a longer discussion about this. Let's just deal with this. Do we have a motion to accept or deny the variance for Lover's Lane property? We have to, someone has to do it one way or the other.
Motion to accept the
We have a motion to
variance.
accept. Do I have here a second?
Can I second with the provision that this topic come up sooner rather than later?
Fine. Accepted. All in favor? Say aye.
Say that again.
She seconded with the provision that we'd have a serious discussion soon about this whole issue.
Yeah, what does soon mean?
Well, soon will be, we meet once a month, maybe 2 months from now, because we need to prepare for it. I don't want to have a discussion where we're just talking philosophy, that we actually have some data, some information, and then it'll be a productive discussion.
Okay.
Because we could have a discussion now, and everyone will say it's not good for the environment, but let's get some facts.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I would say, not next month, maybe the next month. I will,
All right.
I will talk to staff about that.
All right.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. Okay,
Thank you.
I think that's, well, I'll talk to the health director, and we'll schedule some time to have a more serious discussion about this. We need some information, not just, it's not good. All right. Okay. Next level water sports recreation camp variance. Okay. We have the participants here. Is Greg available?
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Okay, good. So you wanted to give a 2-minute introduction, and then we'll hear from the applicant. John,
you want me to give a 2-minute
just 30 seconds.
introduction?
Yeah.
It shrank.
Yeah, this was heard last time this was heard was back in December, where the camp's asking for, many variances, and now they were going to come back at the last December meeting to investigate operating out of the town pier downtown on Washington Street as their base of operation, which I believe was denied by the select board, or isn't something that's feasible with the town. So now here we are again back, and they're asking, in addition to the other variances, a variance from no site location. So I'll
Okay, thank
leave
you.
it to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Bodett for Next Level Water Sports. Here with me today is John Peary, operator of Next Level Water Sports. I know the board is quite familiar with the operation, having granted variances, I think, the last couple of years for the operation. But just to refresh your recollection, they do operate what is considered a camp under the regulations to teach kids kiteboarding, wakeboarding, hydrofoil, amongst other things. We have asked for a number of variances, and I'll go through each of those. Just to refresh your recollection on your standard for variances, this board can grant a variance for anything under 105 CMR or 30 when strict enforcement would be manifestly unjust, and when the applicant proves the same degree of protection under the regulations can be achieved without the strict compliance. I will say that we consider this camp to be a primitive or outpost camp under the regulations, and the definition of that is a portion of a permanent camp premises or other site at which basic needs for a camp operation may not be provided. Just to give you a sense, and I know you know a lot about this camp already, but essentially it operates 10 to 1 or 1 to 4, 4 days a week during the summer, height of the season, July and August, and a little bit at the end of June. They essentially operate, their real location is at the head of the harbor where they perform the camp, But this year, as opposed to prior years, they are planning on picking kids up and dropping kids off at the town pier slip that they've been licensed for. That's the difference between years past. Nonetheless, we have asked for a number of variances, and I'll list the specific variances. I think the last hearing you had, there was discussion about where is the site location for the camp. And so we've asked first and foremost for a variance from providing a site location. And every other variance that we've asked for really follows from the lack of a true, what you consider, say, a fixed brick and mortar site location that some camps have. They are the requirement for an emergency medical facility, as I said, site location, shelters for day camp, sewage disposal, toilet facilities, hand washing facilities, and toilet facilities and hand washing basins for special needs campers, as well as the general public. Those are the variances we've requested. And specifically, I do want to start with the site location, which again, as I mentioned, everything sort of flows from the lack of a site location. And I just want to get out the regulations here so that I say this properly. Section on site location states as follows: no person shall operate a recreational camp for children unless it is located so as to be accessible at all times during the designated camping season, where surface drainage conditions create no health or safety hazard, where approved water supply and sewage disposal facilities can be and are provided, and where traffic conditions create no undue safety hazards. So, as I mentioned, our site location is on the water. That's where we operate. The only other time we're operating is kids coming on and off the boat, and we're planning on doing that at the town pier. The only box we can't check on that site location requirements is, of course, the water and bathroom facilities. And again, one of the reasons we're asking to pick up kids and drop off kids at the town pier at our slip is because there is a public facility there. If anyone needs to use the bathroom, they certainly can. There's water supply there as well. Again, we feel like it would be manifestly unjust to not allow us to operate, and we feel we can provide everything that's required on the site location section of the regulations. The next few variances we're requesting, first and foremost, is the medical facility. Again, it all flows from the fact that we don't have a fixed location. But what we try to provide is maximum feasible compliance with the regulations. We do have a medical consultant. All staff is first aid and CPR certified on these boats with these children. All vessels have a first aid kit. Our medication is stored properly. And in the case of an emergency, we have a temporary tent that we can certainly set someone in until emergency personnel come. Again, we've done everything we can to provide maximum feasible compliance in these regulations. Again, bathroom facilities, sewer, hand washing, again, flows from the fact we don't have a fixed location. We do a lot to have parents plan for these camps, talk to parents about having kids, make sure they go to the bathroom before camp. Nonetheless, again, we are picking people up at the town pier where we have a slip, and there is a facility there that the kids can use. If we're out on the water, that's a 20-minute boat ride from us. We can bring the kids to our slip. They can go to the bathroom, wash their hands if they need to. In the event of an emergency, which is unlikely, again, this is all set up so that we don't have to use any of these things, but we do have privy seats and wag bags that are very common in remote camps. And so that's just in case we have to use them. And again, those rag bags have hand sanitizer in them in the event someone needs to wash their hands while they're on the boat. The last variance is for the lack of shelter for camp activities. And the regulation states that you're supposed to have a shelter to perform your camp activities. Well, in our case, folks, we specifically need to not have shelter to have our camp activities take place. So, but nonetheless, that's a regulation that we need a variance for. Again, we're set up to not need a shelter, but we take every precaution to make sure in the event we need shelter, we have it or we wouldn't need it in the first place. In other words, we have a strict weather policy. Camp is canceled if there's dangerous weather coming. We have a weather briefing with parents and campers every day to let them know what weather we think weather is coming. And a weather briefing with staff every morning as well, and that's ongoing throughout the day. Obviously, if anything changes, camp is canceled. However, in the event something comes upon us without our knowledge or quickly, we do have an emergency shelter we can pitch, just like our medical tent. And the staff is taught to shelter in the dunes if necessary and pitch the tent if necessary. So in conclusion, folks, we have here is an operator that's been on Nantucket 9 years operating. They've done so safely. They provide a great service. It would be manifestly unjust to require them to adhere to all of these regulations when they can certainly provide for a safe camp experience for kids. And happy to answer any questions you have. I know John wants to say just a couple of words, and I know there's a couple of people that did come today to speak on behalf of Next Level Water Sports as well. So,
Staff in the health department has a different view of.
Yeah, would you like did you want to speak, John? Oh, I thought
I would love to, yes.
it's up to the chairman, but I thought that was a
If it means anything. Dear Board of Health, I want to start by saying thank you for hearing our case. We appreciate the opportunity to present and be heard. I'll be concise, as you're probably sick of hearing me speak. My business partner, Jake, and I started our company out of a love for water sports. Our goal is to teach others not only to love playing on the water, but to know how to do it safely. I was blessed to grow up with a father who grew up on the water. From a young age, he instilled simple concepts in me. Fall in love with being on the water. Find what you enjoy doing, push yourself to take pride in what you do, and become talented at it. Recognize that what you are doing on the water has inherent risk. Do everything in your ability to manage and mitigate those risks. That said, nothing good in life comes without taking a calculated risk. Learn through experience. Leverage those who are better than you. Seek their guidance. Learn from every experience to continue to get better. These are the core concepts that drive our company, our camp, and is what we work to instill in every client we work with, especially our campers. We know and respect that the Board of Health, Department of Health, have the prerogative and duty to keep our community safe. We have an inherent challenge in that the activities we love and have devoted ourselves to teaching operate on the water, away from formal facilities, in blowing breeze, getting splashed in the face by water, bobbing on a boat. We believe deeply in doing things the right way, following protocol, being beneficial actors in the community, and doing what is right. Our hope is that the Board of Health can look at our 10-year impeccable operating record on Nantucket, consider the best practice workarounds we take to mitigate risk, and weigh it against the beneficial concepts and life skills that we teach to children. It's a privilege to be able to do what we do, and we humbly request that the Board of Health authorize us to continue doing so. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you. So, staff comments.
Yeah, so just in response, I don't see the same degree of protection being offered at all with these variances. As it's been stated, it's a camp. It operates for 3 hours at a time at these sessions, and the nearest bathroom is 20 minutes away. And I can't speak in any kind of support that a bathroom with washing facilities is 20 minutes away for these children. The intent, of course, with 105 CMR 430 is to promote healthy, safety, and sanitary conditions for children coming to these camps. That's the purpose of this whole regulation, and I don't see the same degree of protection being offered here. Again, the camp has no shelter, so they say they have a collapsible tent, which I don't know how large that tent is or how sufficient protection that provides for any children in inclement weather, or if there's a medical emergency, concussion. It says, cuts are pretty common at the camp is what I read. Again, no medical facility, so I don't know where a child is going to go if they are injured, concussion, or a cut, and is going to be on the beach under a tent in a quiet and restful place, until they can receive medical care. It's stated many times, as is the title of the camp, Next Level Water Sports. I'd classify this as a sports camp. Everything I read in the application is about sports. I continually see that throughout the application and everything we've heard. I just don't see the same degree of protection. I don't argue that they run a good operation and have a great care for what they do and passion for what they do. It's just, our interpretations of the code from our department, all the guidance we've received from DPH, and all our experiencing licensing camps over the years, these just aren't the variances that get approved for camps at all. So that's the position we take. Again, I understand there's a real passion for these water sports. You can operate as a drop-in basis and you're not considered a camp by the regulation. I'm not sure why that's the scenario with the state. However, if they operated in that manner, they could still continue to teach water sports. So, I just don't see the same level of protection being offered here.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
So, but clearly, and not surprisingly, I disagree with that. What is the level of protection that we want to provide? A kid having a bathroom? These are 3-hour-long camps, okay, at most. Part of the time is traveling. Part of the time, the kids are in the water having fun. If they absolutely have to come to the bathroom, most kids 7 to 17 know ahead of time when they need to go to the bathroom. So, if they really have to go, that's why we have the protections in place for them to use hand sanitizer and to use the privy seats if they have to. That's, I'll bet, has never happened in the 9 years. So, and obviously, they're very cognizant of the fact that some of them are younger kids, and they might have to go to the bathroom. That's why they talk to these kids ahead of time when they're at the town pier, so they can go to the bathroom. Or when they come back, they can go to the bathroom. So, I disagree that it's not the same level of protection, and I'm concerned that putting so much emphasis on protecting a kid needing to go to the bathroom. Obviously, it's important, or it wouldn't be in the regulations. But obviously, we have the protections in place to take care of that. Same with the medical facilities. I think these are exactly the kinds of variances that are granted and have been granted last year and have been granted to other people and are granted all across the state. Otherwise, right, there wouldn't be a provision in the regulations that specifically says you can vary anything in these regulations. Anything. So, and that's not the case in all regulations, right? Specifically, the health regulations related to housing. right? A landlord has to provide water to a tenant. The regulations specifically say that a landlord can't come to you and ask you to vary that for obvious reasons, right? That's not the case here. Your regulations specifically state that you can grant variances. And why is that in the regulations? Because there's not one size fits all for all these camps. So at the end of the day, I think we do provide the protections necessary as best as we can, and been operating a long time without incident, and with the support of the harbor master and other people and the Coast Guard and everybody else in the harbor. So I would ask you to grant the variance.
I have a question. Well, we go back to this primitive camp.
Yeah.
It seems to me if it's a primitive camp, then there's actually no regulations, essentially. But to be a primitive camp, you have to have a spot, a home base. Is that correct? I'm going to ask Mr. Greg behind me here, because I've been struggling with the definition of a primitive camp, and it's not that clear. But I'd like to hear our attorney describe his opinion of what a primitive camp is, and then we'll have questions from the board, and then we'll circle back to the issues.
Okay, I would just say, Mr. Chairman, that all the regulations still apply, even in a primitive camp, because it is a day camp for children. That's where the definition comes in.
Okay. Mr. Carbo.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. You're correct. The definition in the regulations is not entirely clear as to what constitutes a primitive camp, only then saying that it is one that does not have facilities. And it clearly cannot be the intent of the regulations to exclude every camp from its requirements if it doesn't have facilities. So, as a general rule, when a regulation is ambiguous, it's reasonable to look at other sources of a definition to fill in the ambiguity. And, the commonly understood definition of primitive camp or primitive camping is one where not only does it not have facilities available, but that it is not reachable by vehicle. And, what that says is that it's not only that the facilities aren't there, it's that the facilities can't be brought there because it is in a place that is so remote that there is no way to have facilities. And so, those are typically camps that are used for short periods of time for overnight camping, where people are expected to, carry in, carry out, and the regulations themselves for primitive camps embrace that type of situation. But, in my opinion, it's not intended to address a situation where, well, we just don't have the facilities. It's rather, it's something that is just so remote that there is no possible way to get the facilities there. And it would not appear to me, but I would defer to staff and the members of the board that this would qualify as a primitive camp.
Questions from the board?
I have a question. If a child has to go to the bathroom, it's 20 minutes to go to the bathroom, say 20 minutes for the child to go to the bathroom, 20 minutes back, that's 1 hour out of 3 that an adult has to be with their child. They probably should be back in where they belong. And that's only if one child has to go to the bathroom. What do you do if there's 2 or 3? That means an adult has to keep going back and lose an hour of a 3 hours deal.
Man,
I mean, you have an adult that's not where he should be because he's with a child going back so the child can go to the bathroom.
may I answer?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Go ahead, let's ask.
Well, I didn't know if he was finished. So first of all, our camper ratio is 2 to 1. 2 campers, and so we would bring the other child with us. And so the adult would still be with those 2 children the entire time. if a couple kids need to go and, or more than two, I suppose, I suppose they could, one boat would, could take the kids. But at no time would we ever leave kids alone on a boat. Again, we're set up so that there's two campers to one adult at all times. So we have multiple boats. It's not one boat out there, Mr. Cooper.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Is it always 2-to-1 per boat? Yes, okay. And then, I think in the regulation, if it's on water, the counselors have to be lifeguards. And it said in your thing that your aquatics director is a lifeguard. Are the other counselors have lifeguard or like I know at the sailing camp, they had.
17 to 1.
No, 17-to-1. No, I know, but with the sailing camps, the training that the counselors get is equivalent to the lifeguard, but a lifeguard status, but, right? You know more about the sailing than I do.
But I think that we learned during that discussion all through there that for a camp that had dealt with water,
Right.
it had to be one lifeguard, certified lifeguard for 17 kids.
Okay, so I guess,
If they don't have 17 kids and they have the aquatics director as,
but is the lifeguard back at where the boat, or the lifeguard is out where all of the boats are doing the lessons, is I guess my question. And then as far as the bathrooms, I mean, my comment is, I think we have, and I'm not naming anyone, but there are a number of camps that go places that take children out to different areas of the island, because we live on this beautiful island with all of this, with these wonderful places to go walk around, and there's not a bathroom at every beach. There's no bathrooms along the bike path that I know of. So when I'm thinking about this, I don't want to use any of those out on a boat, but I get seasick, so I won't be. But I do think that there are a lot of camps that we maybe don't see because they meet everything, but there isn't a bathroom every 5 feet on the island. So whether it's on the water, on the beach, traveling in a van or on a bike or whatever, there's all sorts of different types of camps here that travel different places with our children and maybe don't have bathrooms, and I don't know what they do, dig a hole, or so that is something that I'm sort of thinking, like, what is this similar to? And a lot of the camps, maybe they're not on the water, but they're different places on the island, and they probably have a home base, they just don't have a bathroom right there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. So I think that's a really good point, and I appreciate Ms. Lepre bringing that up. I mean, my kids are older now, but spent many years, many weeks at Mariah Mitchell Camp and many other camps. Again, they're riding around now, again, take Mariah Mitchell as an example. Yeah, they have a home base, but they pick up at the ice rink, okay, which is, I don't know, not their home base. There's no bathrooms in those vans. They drive my kids all over the place. They're in Pocono. They're looking for crabs all day, not just 3 hours, folks. So I would say that, yeah, Mariah Mitchell has a brick and mortar. They have a place to be. That has nothing to do, that provides nothing for the camp in terms of a bathroom or shelter at all. So, and there are other camps, obviously, and I don't mean to name names. I just, and I think they do an excellent job, like we do. But it's a very similar scenario, and I would suggest to you that it's not just Outward Bound that's a primitive camp. I would say that that portion of Mariah Mitchell, when they're out on the water or they're out at a beach somewhere or in the woods, that's the primitive part of their camp. They can't provide facilities there, and this is the same scenario. The difference is we actually can, we're gonna pick someone up where there are facilities at least, so.
Can I ask one more question?
Go right ahead, please.
But what, so where, like, and I guess I'll use the Mariah Mitchell example,
Sorry.
because they do pick up at the ice rink, and there are bathrooms there.
Yeah, sure.
But they do go back to the museum or whatever during part of the day, so they do have a shelter. So if it was a day that it's gonna be, and I think you guys probably cancel camp that day,
Exactly.
but if there were all of a sudden a big storm, they would go inside. They have a place to go inside, and you guys don't have anywhere to go. Like if there's a lightning storm,
Sure.
you're gonna drive them back to the slip, and then I'm not a boater. I don't know what's at the slip other than a bathroom, and
I think you can safely assume next to nothing. I mean, there are other shelters around in the case of an emergency, but those aren't our spots, right? I mean, obviously, we do whatever we can in the event of an emergency, but that's why it's all the more important for us to really keep an eye on the weather. It's not so that we can get a tan, right? It's the safety of the kids and the staff. So that's why, first of all, there aren't many storms that can sneak up on you in less than 20 minutes. That's a fact, okay? So, and that's why we have a briefing with parents in the morning. Hey, look, I see some rain on the radar. We're gonna play it by ear if we're even going out. If it doesn't look good, we're not going out. It's canceled. The parents are aware of it and the staff is aware of it. And so, that's our precaution, is to make sure we don't get put in a position where we can't, go 20 minutes to the boat dock, where hopefully the parents will be waiting.
Hi. Let me ask you a question. Does your company have an insurance policy?
That's a bad question for me, but I think I'm sure that my.
The only reason I'm asking is, God forbid, something bad should happen. You're asking us to waive a ton of things here that you actually really should have. And someone that has an idea of this puts this list together, and I think the list would come back to haunt us. God forbid anything serious should happen.
So I'll have my client answer whether they have an insurance policy, and I assume they do.
To your insurance question, we have a $1 million, $2 million policy as required by the town, and we got specific sign off on all of the variances last year. So we have a letter from our insurance company that they acknowledge the variances that were granted and they're fine with it. And then the other point I would step back to is our policies around weather. Every coach has 3 different weather apps as well as a VHF radio. We use Storm Radar, which gives you an alert, and we have a trained policy where if someone's phone goes off, everyone's VHFs go off. We use iKitesurf and Weather Underground as well. So every morning we have visibility on radar, we have live updates for weather, and we have VHF radios, so we've crowdsourced the weather monitoring. But if we see inclement weather in the morning, any possibility on that day-long forecast of we might have thunderstorms rolling through, we cancel camp and no one comes out. But to your insurance question, yes, we have insurance as required by the town, and they're aware of all of our variances.
Yeah, I read the manual from front to back, and actually I was very impressed with it. And if you really do have all those practices in place, and your staff are trained to that level, that is good. I noticed, they had the CPR training as well as concussion protocol. So, I mean, that my questions last month were more about those kind of health and, not just the sailing, but being able to react in an emergency. So I have a bunch of small, stupid questions maybe, but they're questions. Jim took care of the insurance one, so thank you. And this is just a comment now, the harbor master letter wasn't dated. So I'm assuming, I don't know if it was from this year, 2 years ago. So, I mean, that would help to know when stuff was written.
So she provided that letter last year. I've been in constant contact with Sheila throughout this, and she's been helping advise us on how to navigate it. So she is not able to provide a letter of endorsement for our camp, because
Right,
she has
she can't.
liability too. But she's been abundantly supportive, and I think if you wanted an updated letter, I'd be more than happy to ask
You
her.
know, it's just more that it wasn't dated, it was kind of, it's like, well, I'm not sure what it means then.
No, it was probably a procedural
Yeah.
oversight.
Small question, you have helmets for the various things. Are those disinfected daily? That was a procedure I didn't see in the manual. It's like bowling shoes, when you get them, they spray them afterwards.
100%. I've never thought of that, and we can buy disinfectant and absolutely do that.
I mean, it's
That's a
just,
great idea.
stuff can be in here
Yep.
that is kind of nasty.
Yep.
Verifying the town pier is the drop-off and pickup point, and then I'm assuming you'll work with the police department in terms of traffic and or something. I mean, 'cause one of the issues brought up before was, well, there's a lot of traffic in the town in the morning, and people don't want to do that, but that is still the better solution if we're going to do this. Students wear life jackets at all times?
Yes, depending on activity. So at the advent of camp, all campers do a swim test off the bat. And then every single boat is equipped with one extra small, one extra small, two medium, two large, and one XL life jacket. So we have ample life jackets, and anytime a child is in the water, they are wearing a life jacket, absolutely.
And on the ride out too, I mean, I thought you said like below 17 or below a certain age that students
Below
wear.
13, they're wearing a life jacket, yes.
Okay. And I guess I do agree with Meredith on the issue of that, you're out in the island, and I see bikers and with their camps, and they're nowhere near a bathroom at that point in time. They might be out by bridge, out Long Pond by the bridge. And yeah, you gotta do something. I noticed, you do have the camper toileting materials that are in each boat, or is that on the barge?
We have our Motor Vessel Freedom as our mothership, and that's where we store our big first aid kit, the ANSI Level 2 certified kit, and then that's where the restroom facility is as well. So if it is an emergency situation, we have the ability to respond immediately and provide a restroom.
Okay, and you'd be able to go to, in that case, would you use the barge, would you go like just hit the shoreline?
We'd go to the shoreline, put them in a private spot where they're totally comfortable, make sure they're private, and they'd have a coach with them the whole time.
Okay, thank you, those are at least mine.
I don't think so. I think that. I think the nature of this activity is going to have to require a variance, because you can't do what they are doing and meet every requirement that a camp has. It is somewhere between a wilderness camp, I would say, and a regular kind of a camp that has a home base and everything. And since we don't have a middle of the road camp requirements, we have to sort of adapt it, I think. And I feel they've thought of most, maybe all, possibilities. But I also think that in signing their children up for this camp or any similar camp, the parents, I'm sure, made very aware of exactly where they're going to be and what is going to happen. And in allowing them to participate, I'm sure there's permissions that get signed. To a certain extent, I think they're taking responsibility for their own families and their own children.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I did, there's one thing I did want to touch on, and that's, a point that John made, that, we could certainly do all of this on a drop-in basis, which means under 2 hours a day. And procedurally, under 2 hours doesn't really work for us. Doesn't give us enough time to get out there, do what we want to do with the kids and get back. But just, from a practical standpoint, isn't it, in my mind, isn't it better to have these guys subject to the regulations, all the regulations, and grant variances for a few, or a number of them? And that way you have purview over what they're doing, as opposed to just someone, me, getting paid $100 to take a kid out because it's a drop-in basis and have no regulations apply to these people. And I think that's, he's right about the fact that we could just go do this without subjecting ourselves to regulations. But I don't personally think, having had kids in camps and some that were good and some that weren't, I don't think that's the right thing to do. So I just wanted to mention.
Well, we certainly have to have regulations. So that gets back to, I'm having trouble looking at this as a primitive camp by the definition, because it's not that primitive. But you don't really have a base, and without a base, then our inspector can't inspect you, and therefore, even if we give you variances, we're giving you variances beyond what we've done to other camps. So you need a base, and then I think we'd be in better shape, yes?
And I can't agree with that, Mr. Chairman. That's why we've asked for the variance for the base. I'm not, first of all, I'm not entirely convinced we need a base under the regulations, okay? But but for the sake of this hearing, we have assumed we do, okay? And that's why we've asked for a variance for it. But, really what the purpose of the base is under the regulations is to make sure it's accessible at any times during the camping season. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. To make sure there's not surface drainage conditions that create a health and safety hazard. To make sure there's a bathroom, obviously, which is what we've been talking about a lot. And to make sure there are no traffic conditions that create undue safety hazards. Those are the only requirements of having a site location. So, I don't see why having a location, frankly, I don't see, if you run a surf camp at the beach, I don't see how that provides some kind of shelter any more than what we can provide, frankly. And I don't think it matters whether we're, primitive camp or not. I think we are a day camp for children under the regulations, whether we're primitive or not. And frankly, it's really just to illustrate that we don't, the whole purpose of what we do is out there and not on the land.
So if we're going to get beyond the primitive camp, whatever that means, how do our inspectors inspect you?
Well, that is a good question. Last year,
That's a very good question, because if we don't have an inspection, then we really don't have regulations.
right. And I don't think that's the case. I think you do have a lot of regulations that we have
Yes,
to
but
comply to.
we still, Heather would like to inspect. That's,
I know Heather wants to inspect, and I can appreciate that. She has to do her job. I think last year you granted a variance, and we were picking up kids at Pocomo, and I think Heather inspected there. I don't know what she inspected there. I think that clearly, every one of our boats should be inspected. Every one of our health kits should be inspected as well. And obviously, our slip to make sure that kids can safely get on and off the boats, which I'm sure they can. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think Heather needs to inspect the bathrooms at the town pier. I think the town takes care of that. And we don't own them, so.
is your boat, your basic boat, is that your base?
We have a number of boats, as John said.
You had a boat where you had toilet facilities on it? Is that your base?
Because we operate on the water, we have to have a means of storing everything we need to do everything. So we have kind of a mothership. Our comical
Mothership,
name,
yeah.
Our name for it is Motor Vessel Freedom. It's a 23-foot Carolina skiff, and that's where we built out tons of storage for safety equipment, everything. And that's what Heather inspected last year. So she came and got onto all of our boats. A few of them she did not get on because they were a little further out, and she said we were So, yeah, she was able to inspect, but we could nose up to the dock. We're willing to work with any measure that you guys would want to be able to get on and inspect our vessels.
So what's the problem here?
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead, please.
Well, one, if you only charged $100, you'd be the most popular camp around. The surf camps do have porta potties.
Yeah.
And then the life preserver question, I would think that every camper would be wearing a life preserver on the way out, and I don't know what the law is as far as age, but like, even if I had a 15-year-old or 17-year-old, I would think if they were in your care as a camper, they would be in a life preserver going out to wherever you're going, and then I don't know the law, I'll be honest.
So the Coast Guard regulation is anyone under 13 needs to be in a life jacket, and that's what we adhere to. But then then we do swim tests. So we end up taking kids out week over week and building rapport. Because what we do is not like, oh, just go do, it's very hands-on. We build a relationship and trust where kids need to know what's going, we're teaching advanced skills. So everyone under 13 is wearing a life jacket at all times per Coast Guard regs. And then older kids, while they are on our vessels, and again, there is a coach by their side at all times who are trained on how to handle this. But while they're on our vessels, if they're over 13 and they pass the swim test, we do not mandate it. It's what my father had me do. But anytime they're in the water, they're doing water sports, they are in a life jacket in case they hit their head and get knocked out, they're floating.
Thank you.
Can I just have one,
Go ahead.
maybe it's more of a suggestion, is that, because if we get through this year, we'll have next year. It might be helpful to have data about, such things as cancellations, injuries and stuff like that. I mean, just as opposed to, because your manual is really thorough. I mean, it actually be good for a lot of places to have manuals that thorough. But thing is, unless we know something, unless we have data, it's hypothetical, everything's hypothetical. And if we have to go through this dance in the future to maybe, since your folks do daily reports when they come back in, to be able to kind of aggregate that so you can say, well, yeah, we only had 3 injuries last year. I mean, something that gives us something that addresses what our concerns are.
That's a great question, Carrie. So we have built a pretty cool system. It runs through Google Sheets. So every day there are checkout forms that occur and they flow to a spreadsheet, and we have an auto aggregator that feeds that data. So we have attendance data every single day. We know who's there, who's not. We have check-in, we have check-out. We have evidence of completion for the swim test. So all of these things are tracked. We track injuries and everything. And that's part of why our insurance company was on board, because they see the systems and controls that we've built.
Yeah, and I think, if we have to go do this dance again in the future, that would be probably helpful to kind of have that be part of. So it's like, no, this is what the reality of how we operate is. And I think,
Carrie, that makes perfect sense. But that also brings up a question for me of, is this a one-time variance like it was last year? Or would this be, when the variances are granted, like, are all the surf schools as NCS, are we all expected to come before the board every year? Because we haven't been able to market for 4 years, and it's done major damage. And if we have to come before the board, we're more than happy to, but we would like a calculated plan, because we've held back on marketing because out of respect for the rules and the board. But it's impacting our ability to pay our bills.
and I can't answer the variance question. That's a Rocky or John question about the variance procedure. I'm assuming, I always make the assumption that things are year to year, that a variance is granted for
So we
1
have,
year.
go ahead. Rock, you have a comment?
That is my understanding. John, variances are done yearly.
I believe that's the case with the camp code. I do need to double check
Yeah,
on that.
we'd have to double
but
check.
I'm pretty
I'm
sure
not
you need
positive.
to report every variance that you grant to the state every year. So,
And I think that's why we started, last year, we said we wanted to start the camp discussion and have them
Early.
come in like in November even, just to kind of start getting so that we could resolve. And yet, we did a pretty good job this year. We have, next level is kind of still one that, we had lots of questions, but, the idea was to get ahead of it so that variances could be in place, marketing could be done, and we would know what to do. So, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a yearly dance. And, the better information that addresses our concerns, helps.
And we did start this process in October. I think we started with the presentation, then we started getting variances in November and December, and that's when they were initially addressed. So obviously, this one has gone on and been continued longer. But the goal is always to do these as quickly as possible, and we'll try even to get it done earlier. But if I'm right and we have to do this on a yearly basis, then that's what's in the regulations. There's no way
Mr. Chairman, I think it probably, I don't know the specific answer either, like John, obviously we can find that out, but I think like chances are, I would say, you probably have to grant them every year, and that gives you an opportunity to not grant one if these people have had an issue, if an operator has had an issue. That would be my assumption, I don't know. I'm assuming you have to do this every year.
So I'm going back to why can your inspector inspect the boat?
Well, the inspectors inspect bases of operation. So we're able, I mean, if the harbor master allowed us to go on a boat and inspect there, that we'd have to clear that with her. I don't know that she has been willing to do that in the past or allow that. And obviously, this is the first time anybody's requested to not have a base of operation that I'm aware of. And so that part's unprecedented. But what we can't do is walk onto private property and climb onto boats to do inspections. It needs to be, which is why we have asked for a base of operation so that we can do that.
So you're not, well, I can't speak for the harbor master, but the base wouldn't be the dock, the base would be the boat. So all your inspector would have to do is walk onto the boat, and then we have the inspection.
I am fine with that as long as the harbor master knows that we're there and we're doing that.
Okay.
I just got one more thing to say.
One more question, and then we'll move on. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a question for the board, okay? It's not one or two little things they're asking for. There's 8 things right here. If we give them permission and we let them walk out of here with a variance of all these 8 things, all I'm saying is, God forbid, something doesn't happen, but if it does, where does the fault lie? With us? For giving them so many things that they need to have that we let them walk out here without?
Well, we have given variances to other camps for some of these things as well.
I'm just, okay.
I mean, if we're not going to give variances, then we're not going to have any camps on the side.
I know, but there's 8 things here that they really should have that we're letting them
Well,
walk out without.
But we can give variance at because of the nature of this camp. The point is, for the health and welfare, we are supposed to take care of the health of this community. And the health of this community, a lot of it depends on what our youth does and what they do in the summers. And if we don't give variances, then we have no summer camps, essentially. Because every summer camp we've given a variance to, for the most part.
Yeah, but, I mean, they have rules for a reason.
Well, we have rules, but like I say, we have to supply activities for our youth,
Okay.
in my opinion. That's part of our job as well. And this organization has a pretty stiff manual. They've had a history of doing it pretty well. So, I don't know. Other comments on the board? I just want to make sure they get inspected properly. So what are we going to do? What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I would hope that maybe we could have, and it's March, so maybe we can do this, that in October next year, we have a special meeting that's just about camps and all the camps that need variances, and everyone comes or in person or on Zoom, and we just do all of them in October so that they can be prepared and have it, because we did do 2 surf camps in October. And I just think it leads to very large discussions when we have to do one every month and different, and rather have like a special meeting just for, which I think we've discussed before.
I think we should do
Just for
that.
camps in October, be there. And that's when you get the variance, and if you miss it, then there'll have to be something special, I don't know. But I think we have one meeting so that it's done for the following year, because it is March, and I will tell you, as a parent of children that go to camps, you were booking this,
Yes.
your camps in December, January, February, like,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a couple more points. First of all, I want to apologize for being here in March, and I think that's partially my fault. These guys reached out to us in January, and it took us a little while to get up to speed and understand the regulations, as well as your staff does and as well as you do. And so we had hoped to be in here in February, but it didn't happen. And so that's partially my fault. And the other thing I do want to mention, and I don't want to prolong this hearing anymore, but a few people did come to speak on behalf of Next Level. I don't think it's necessary that we hear from many of them. However, one individual did take time out of his day to prepare a bit of a statement, who's passionate, and his name is Finn Gator. And he's going to be 11 next week, and wanted to speak to the board, and I was wondering if maybe he could just say a few words.
Go right ahead.
My name is Finn Gator. I am 10 years old and in the 5th grade. I was lucky enough to attend a few weeks of Next Level water sports last summer. My dad said that they were having a hard time getting permission to run camp this year, and that he was going to try to help. Next Level was a really special experience for me, so I asked if I could try to help too. I came here today to speak about my experience and share my thoughts with you. I've spent every summer of my life as a Strong Wings camper, but last year I received a scholarship to attend Next Level. I love Strong Wings, but I was excited to try something new. No offense, Dad. I surf, swim, and love boats. I knew this was right up my alley, but I had no idea how much I would love it. The staff was so kind. I always felt safe. I learned how to drive a boat. We e-foiled, flew kites, wakeboarded, and kiteboarded. I made friends with the counselors, and they sent my parents pictures and videos of me doing cool stuff. Not only did I make new friends, but 2 of my island friends were also able to attend with me on a scholarship as well. Camp is expensive, so we felt really lucky. I also feel really lucky to grow up on Nantucket. I feel like if you grow up on Nantucket, there are a few things that you should experience and hopefully learn to love. You should learn to bike safely, you should learn to swim and surf, and you should get to know all of the conservation land. You should hunt, fish, and scallop, and you should love and protect the harbor. I got all the first things from my family and Strong Wings, but I found my love of water sports in the harbor from Next Level. My friends and I had an amazing experience last year. Even though my dad explained it, I don't fully understand why they are having such a hard time getting permission to run this year. My only hope is that the people who are in charge of making this decision can hear and understand what a special camp this is, and that we can find a way to make it work for Next Level, so that my friends and I can join them again this summer and for many more summers to come. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for your comments.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. So, fine. we will, well, if I'm the select representative to the Board of Health for the next session, I'm not going to be chairman, so someone can remind us next year, whoever is the chairman, to deal with this in October, or September even. So,
Could I ask one last question?
yes.
Suppose we change the name from camp to school, or some other word other than camp. I'm wondering if some of the people that are in front of us all the time for variances, if we do better if we had some other nomenclature for them, or if that would come with regulations that were worse.
Department of
or
Education.
Something. Well,
I
there
think
isn't
there's
any
a,
Department of Education.
I think it'd still be interpreted as a camp.
the regulations specifically state whether you call yourself a camp or not.
Yeah,
You're a
Okay.
camp.
it would still be doing this.
Okay.
Okay, so the pleasure of the board.
Can I make a motion to approve the variances and we will relook at these in October?
A motion has been made to approve the variances as listed in the application. Do I hear a second?
I second.
And for discussion, I encourage, if this passes, I encourage that the camp and the health department find a way to get the inspector on the boat, if you have to row her out.
Absolutely, we'll get over there, for sure.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion as presented, which is approving the variances as listed in the application? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any negatives? We have one abstention and the chairman votes aye. Variances are approved 4-0 with one abstention.
Thanks very much, everyone, for your time. I know that was a long hearing. Appreciate it.
Just make sure you get inspected,
We
please.
will. Thank you.
All right. And Greg, thank you for staying on through this. You helped me a lot because I was very confused about what a primitive camp is.
Yeah, it's not an easy definition to apply, and honestly, I don't think that any of these camp regulations are very easy. And I think that the residents should certainly appreciate how hard you are working to make sure that these camps can operate, but at the same time be protective of their children.
Thank you. Okay, so 34 Hinsdale Road Housing Connection Order. This is a hearing that's been continued since last month. Can we get it off the plate, gentlemen?
Yes, so we had re-inspected back in January, Heather and I, and the last remaining outstanding violation from the correction order that was issued back in November for this property dealt with the mold in the tenant's room, and we re-inspected, and that mold had been removed. So in terms of that order to correct issued back in November, everything has been, all those violations have been addressed. So I'm not sure if Greg's
That's the case.
speak or
We can close this hearing.
representative from the property owner.
So do I have a motion to close the hearing and we can move on?
So moved.
Motion to close. And second?
Carrie made and second, all in favor?
I
Aye.
see, sorry, I see a hand up if you.
Uh-oh. Oh.
What's the hand?
Megan
Ryan.
Megan Ryan?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I'm sorry for, I was having a little trouble hearing. So I represent Deutsche Bank as trustee, the record owner of the property. I just want to make sure you're talking about the 34 Hinsdale Road property right now. I just couldn't hear the address cut out.
Yeah, we're talking about
Correct.
that, yes. As far as we understand, the various issues have been resolved.
That's from the order to correct that was issued back in November.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
So-
order is,
So those violations from that order to correct have
Have
been
been corrected.
addressed. Yes, yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will continue the public hearing of large events at private homes related to short-term rentals. Greg has sent us some revisions of what we have done here. And we'll do any comments on the comments. And then I know we're going to have culture and tourism talk to us.
Yes, Mr.
And
Chair.
we'll open it up for public comment.
Correct, yes, they're available there on Zoom. So if for any questions you have, Shanta and
Well, let's
Dina.
have them first, and then they can leave if they want to. And then we can go back to it. Hello, culture and tourism, who do we have?
Hello, Mr. Chair. You have myself, Chantal Blois Murphy. I'm the Director of Culture and Tourism. And I also have Dina Weatherly, who is our new Cultural Affairs and Special Events Coordinator. As you all know, Special Events has now moved from the Police Department over to Culture and Tourism. So we oversee all of those large and small scale, really, special events. And that's really any event that's happening on public property. It also includes any events that serve alcohol, really, open to the public, or they're selling tickets to it, or they are advertising.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And welcome, because, you know, we've been struggling with this issue of parties of sorts in various facilities. One where we have some authority over is in short-term rentals, but we don't really have, or the health department doesn't really have any ability to enforce that or deal with these if we approve them. Now, these regulations would have to be approved at this board, and then it'd have to be approved at the select board as well. So I don't know, have you looked at what we've been doing at all? Chantal.
So we spoke to John quite a bit about this, what you all have been working on. And I suppose for us, where we stand with the with sort of trying to regulate the short-term rentals acting as event spaces, it gets a little tricky for us just because when it comes to private property, which is essentially what these are, depending on what outcome of everything is, but they're private properties. They're not required to request any special event permits. So we really can't do anything on those properties. They sort of have to self-report that they're having a large event, over 200 people or 250 people, and require a public assembly permit through the select board. I know we had one wedding that attracted some celebrities last year that they self-reported their tent and actually requested for Plus and Fire to come in and inspect the tent to ensure safety, but not everyone is going to do that. The other area that we might get involved is the noise ordinance. So if they're making noise after 10 p.m., the PD can get involved in that. However, unless the neighbors call in and say there's noise after 10 p.m., we don't know about half these things happening.
Right, but just supposing, we got through these and we agreed to them that we were going to do it, and we designated you as our agent. Would you accept that position? Because we can. I know when we did fertilizer regulations, we had other people do the agent. I just curious what your reaction to that would be.
It's pretty routine for us to review special event permits and get the necessary departments involved, so it wouldn't be any more than we're already dealing with. As far as I guess, Dina, I'm going to let you weigh in on this because they come directly to your desk and you're the one who will have to do these. We get about 200 or so special event permit requests, from road races to hikes and walks to large events and such. So to throw in the private homes as well, or the short-term rentals as well, I'd imagine it's probably going to double or triple. But I have to say I'm 100% on board with ensuring that if we're having events on island, we're doing it safely. And, I would hate for, food poisoning to come out of one of these events and you have 200 people at a wedding getting sick and we didn't even know it was happening. But I guess I'll let Dina chime in instead of ranting on.
Sure. Thank you. So I guess I'm also on board as well. I would say that it would probably double or triple the amount of applications coming in, but that's not a different process per se. The one thing I did have not concerns about, but questions about is the need for a special. So what we have right now is a special event permit. So it would entail creating a different type of permit altogether. And it would kind of entail fleshing out what that would mean for other departments. So for example, some other departments don't require necessarily an inspection if something is on private property, like you don't need a fire detail or you don't need a specific type of permit. Then that would basically, I would be issuing a permit that doesn't have additional moving parts, like a special event permit. So if the answer is always going to be yes, then I would say it doesn't really need a permit. But for me, I would say that it that would be one of my considerations if I'm permitting it. What exactly am I looking for? Because if it's just at someone's house, for example, right now, even if there's a special event permit at a private property, you just need the permission of the property owner in order to have it there. It's not any additional considerations are only based on the size of the event, if it's open to the public, and if they're serving alcohol. So that would be the question or the consideration that I have for that.
Okay. Any questions from the board up to
Sorry, Mr.
to our
Sean.
colleagues?
Sean Todd, do you have your hand up still?
I should have brought my computer. I hate this.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Mr. Chair, if you will, I do have a question because looking over the document that's in the packet, the section that talks about permit for use of short-term rental for gatherings. And, a gathering is then defined as the assembly of any number of people that essentially doubles the occupancy, is double the approved capacity of the space. If the approved capacity of the space is 10 and they're having a gathering of 20 people, and I guess, are you then, you're expecting them to submit a special event permit, for like a family reunion of 20 people?
More than.
Yeah, it'd be more than, I mean, that is an excellent question, and it's something we kind of stumbled over last week. So it's certainly not, this is a very drafty draft.
Okay.
So that's a good question.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
I mean, I think that the reason that we have this is if people have a party with 20 people, but they're stop at 10 o'clock, they're not being loud, they're not doing all of the things, then nobody would necessarily know. But if someone's having a giant wedding or something, I think that is really maybe where this came from, is these larger parties, but you sort of have to, do you say 50 people's okay or less, but it's a 2-bedroom house? Like, I think we had to come up with a number for a number, and so it was double the occupancy, but if it's a 5-bedroom house, that's 10 people plus 2, so that's 12 people, so then they can have 24 people.
Yeah, okay. So what you're telling us, you're certainly not saying no and go away and leave us alone. I think there's obviously further discussion, and I appreciate that. Because I think it's a sort of a town issue, is if this was approved, how does it get enforced?
Is there a way to kind of do a scenario so we can practice to see, what it really, what, if we follow the process we have and we use their forms, where's the shortfall between the two?
Well, I think we should, my advice to the board is that we get comfortable with what we proposed. We hear from the public, and then we go back and sit down with cultural and tourism in the details, and also talk a little bit to town administration, because ultimately, the town is going to have to
Approve this thing.
have some way of dealing with this personnel-wise. You have a comment, sir?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it just depends on what the final draft of this looks like as to who would be involved.
Yeah.
Is it a police issue? Is it a health department issue? It really depends on what's going to be here finally as to what enforcement might look like. But you're talking about potentially a number of different agents of the Board of Health and needing the town to kind of get together around whether or not personnel-wise we can do that.
Right, I agree. I think we have to, at some points, have a working group of the various departments involved once we're at least somewhat more comfortable with what we have here. And I would have to speak to various people in the town about how we'd go forward with this. Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Dina has her hand up.
Yes, go ahead.
Wanna-
Yes, sorry. Something that I also wanted to point out is that some spaces currently on Nantucket are designated as spaces of assembly, and I believe some of that is based off of or upon square footage. So when considering homes, I feel like we've been or not we, but you all have been talking about like occupancy and double the occupancy. But for example, if there's like a 3-bedroom and it's like 2,000 square feet, but there's like a 3-bedroom mansion and it's like 10,000 square feet, I feel like it's not fair to say like, oh, you can only have 6 people before it becomes a consideration in both of those spaces. So that's something I guess it would also be important to think about, if the size of the space limits how many people could be there, because those are just two totally different venues if you're considering it like that.
Yes.
So I think that the first thing we have to do is decide what we want to do. In other words, what is the purpose of this? And I remember last time I said, we are not doing this to be punitive. We are doing this because we feel, after some experiences that have been reported to us, that there needs to be some regulation here. And when I say punitive, the only reason that we're getting involved here at all is that it involves short-term rentals. And because we are mandated to sort of be in charge of short-term rentals, this comes under our purview, right? So here we are. I don't think, and we went back and forth for a lot last time about whether this would apply to someone's private home having a wedding for their daughter or a reunion for their 50th anniversary or whatever. And we, I think, came to the decision that it did not apply to a private home, and that we, even if we thought it should, we would have no business getting involved with that sort of regulation. So we're really only talking about short-term rentals. And I think, if I recall, that the reason that we chose that number is that we said, okay, what's a fair number? And we said, okay, well, what is the capacity of the house? And the capacity of the house is the bedrooms, 2 per bedroom plus 2 people, if I recall. And so then we said, all right, well, let's double that. Because somebody brought up the idea that, well, then you wouldn't, if you could only have 8 people in the house, you couldn't really have a dinner party. So we said, okay, well, let's double that. So I think we need to decide you know, is this something that we really want to regulate in the first place? And secondly, if we do, what is the number of people that seems reasonable? Is that doubling it reasonable? Should we triple it? I mean, what is, to me, that's really where what we have to decide. And once we do, then we can ask the tourism group to work with us to do the permitting.
Good thing to start is, if you're gonna use something, use the square footage of a house. If a house is 2,000 square feet, you figure out how many people you want. If it's 5,000 square feet, you just use that number and go by that. And if it's a little 1,000 or 1,200 square foot house, you use that number for that. Pick a number and use it times the square foot that's in the house.
How would you decide what would be an appropriate number? I mean, is it like what you can have in a restaurant? What is?
My house is 1,200 square feet, okay? It's a little 24 by 26 or whatever it is, upside down house. I mean, I couldn't have more than 20 people in the house and they'd be tripping all over each other. So you've got to get, I would start with a small house and figure out how many people could be comfortable in that house. And then as square footage gets bigger, the amount of people gets bigger.
Well, I'm sure there's a number that's allowed by law, because if you go into various spaces, it'll say capacity per order of the fire department or per order of the such and such is 30. I mean, I bet that's based on, what do you think that's based on, John and Rocky? About exiting or breathing
I mean,
or what?
the small stab I'd take at it, but before consulting with the building commissioner and fire department would probably be, it probably has to do with tents. I'm sure tents have some sort of occupancy limit that they can have, or, you know, I mean, you know, obviously, commercial spaces like restaurants or even this room has an occupancy limit set by the building commissioner or fire department. So I'm not sure how they do those calculations to get those figures. And I believe that applies to tents as well, although I'm not the authority to really talk on that, but yeah. So, okay.
So we've switched now, going from sort of the occupancy side of things to square footage. Is that, does everybody feel good with that?
I would see what the square footage numbers are and come back to it, because I don't think we'll resolve that today.
You know, I was just gonna say that, you know, at least I'll speak from schools, you know, the square footage it's based upon a certain amount of square footage per student. And if you multiply, and that's the size of a classroom, is based upon, you know, that a person has a certain amount of space they're allowed. So, and I'm gonna guess that at least for commercial spaces and public spaces, that's gonna be, for private homes, though, it may not hold.
So other than this, the square footage or occupancy, other comments on the comments that Greg has updated this from our discussion last week? No comments. So what do you guys want to do next?
I'm sorry, I was just looking at some of the regs here. It's maximum building capacity in Nantucket depends on various factors. So I don't think there's one number you're going to be able to come up with, you know, for square footage. So it includes zoning regulations, building permits, and intended use of the space. Zoning laws in Nantucket specify ground cover percentage, minimum lot sizes, and other requirements that influence how many people a building can accommodate. So I think I don't know that you're going to be able to come up with one number based on square footage or some other one factor.
So,
I think that maybe we explore the square footage and then discuss it and get that information for next month. And then we can kind of make a decision if it's based on bedrooms or square footage. Like, we're gonna have to just choose one way that it's measured. You know, I think we're just gonna have to pick one. I lean towards the bedrooms just because I think it's an easy thing to do, but I don't dislike the square footage. I just think it's something to look at.
What I would suggest, we take the following, check into some square footage regulations. We'll continue this to next week. I'm gonna go talk to the select board chair and town administration about kind of report where we are, and that we're gonna need to talk to cultural tourism. Maybe get some of that coordination. Anything else you want to do today? Because the only comments we seem to have from what we marked up last time was the square footage or occupancy.
You know, the other thing you got to remember is it's the square foot drop, whatever we decide it's going to be, it's only probably going to be for one day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like you say, you can't have more than 15 people in your house ever. You know, this is a one-day thing, you get a permit for one day, and I think it would work great if would come to a number and just multiply by the square foot, then no one can bitch about anything.
I tend to agree. Okay, so there's no other comments on the other markups? No. Amazing.
No, it got everything, he grabbed everything else we talked about. So, I mean,
I think last time, there was a question whether we were even gonna go forward with this, because as you recall, we had a lot of objectors, not in the room, but on the phone. And people saying that they thought it was unfair, and why were we targeting short-term rentals? And, you know, some caterers were talking to us about all kinds of things like that and stuff. I think it's, what I'm sort of sensing from the group is that we feel that we do want to go forward.
My sense is that we should go forward to a point. I'm not gonna go forward until I know that we haven't created more aggravation for the people that work for the town. I have to feel very comfortable that it's going to be, if we send it to the select board, that it's going to have proper enforcement.
You don't think it's worth sending a signal, work or no work? Because, don't do this, you can't come here and rent a place just to turn it into a party house?
I need to talk it over. I mean, I want to talk to the select board chair and see where she's going from. And I just know we make regulations, we make great things that we're gonna do, and then we don't enforce them, so, you know, I'm sorry. I'm not, that's my opinion. Now, if the board wants to go forward, it's up to you. I'm just one vote.
No, you're right, though. We make regulations we can never enforce.
Oh, really the regulation.
I know.
Because then you feel good that you've done something,
I
but
know.
you really haven't done it.
This is a little different than fertilizer and things like that, in my opinion. This is sending a signal, and it's making a statement, and in making that statement, enforced or not enforced, it's sort of having, I would think, people back off a little on possibly, I could be wrong, maybe
I don't know.
we would like to have somebody else do short-term rentals anyways. I mean,
Yeah, that's a whole nother
it would be kind of nice just to move the whole thing off the
That's
ballot,
another
but that's not happening, but.
I mean, I think the fact that only 800, well, not even 900 people have registered their STRs means people are not, sorry, it's a number more.
981 as of today.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
well,
almost 1,000.
There
That's
are
close.
very clearly more than that. I have heard anywhere from 1,300 to 2,000. And so, but just because we don't have all of the manpower doesn't mean that we shouldn't do anything. We don't have all the manpower to fight PFAS, but we're not going to just go, well, we're just going to keep drinking poisoned water. Like, you have to do something. And I think that there were events this summer that were really large and really bothersome to the community and neighbors. And it is so different having your family member's wedding at your house in your backyard and your neighbors all know versus renting a house to just have a giant party. And I'm not trying to be the party police, but it is just different. There's not the same respect.
I agree.
I get the sense.
100%.
I get the senses that we continue to move forward regardless.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But could I ask one little question about what Meredith just said, Rocky? If there are 981 registrants, and Meredith says there are 1,300 or more, what recourse, if we find out that you are illegally short-term renting, what can we do? Or
Well,
what is
there are,
done?
there are,
Fine.
into the regulations or fines are written in there, the opportunity that you won't get a short-term rental permit for even that
Ever
year or the
again.
next year. And, 981 is what we know for sure. And so I've heard lots of different numbers. Nobody knows for sure.
Okay.
And so, it's just, we'll work through this summer. Just got approval to hire a short-term rental community liaison, so that person's role will be to start looking at this, these reports that come out as to houses that are potentially rented as short-term rentals that are not registered. So we have some things in place, but no one knows for sure, I'll say that now.
All right. But theoretically, they could have a pretty hefty fine.
I don't know what the number is right off the top of my head.
I remember it's.
If it's not hefty, it's,
I don't
it
know
might
what you,
as well
I don't
not
know what you
exist.
mean by hefty, but if you haven't,
But there's a
well,
fine.
more than
There's a fine.
$500.
and You lose your right to short-term rental for some period of time.
Okay.
There was also just an article about a short-term rental that was not registered but was listed on Airbnb and did not have smoke detectors. And there was a fire and people died and the owners were arrested. So, I mean, I think people need to register them because then you have to have met these guidelines and
Yeah.
I think with long-term and short-term rentals, like, we want to make sure that these homes are safe for people, that they have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, and there's not overcrowding and.
And that's the only reason why the Board of Health should be involved at all in
It's
this.
a help.
Yeah. Yep.
You could make anything in this town.
Oh, sorry. Greg Corbo has his hand up.
Go back.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. So according to the town's bylaw, a person who violates the bylaw in any way, but if they were to be operating a short-term rental without a license from the Board of Health, they could be subject to a civil penalty of up to $5,000 for each day that they conduct that operation without a license. So there is a very serious penalty for people who just choose not to comply with the registration requirement.
That's hefty. That's what I call hefty.
Okay, so the consensus of the board, we will resolve at the next meeting, the square footage and number of people. We'll open up for public comments, and then we'll move the proposed amendments to the select board. That's what we'll do. So next meeting, we will wrap things up. And I will touch base with the tourism people just to make sure we're all in sync with them at some point. And so I need a motion to continue the hearing, please.
Motion to continue the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, we continue the hearing. And we're gonna wrap it up.
Thank you, Shanton, Dina.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up next meeting. I mean, we're gonna finish it next meeting and then send it out to the school.
Perfect.
And in that period of time, I'll talk to various people, and I'll talk to culture and tourism, just to get their input and so forth.
And who's talking to about the square footage thing?
John's gonna do some investigation for us.
Okay.
Can we pass that off to Natural Resources or something?
We're
DPW.
We're all gonna go to
DPW, I
Jim's
think,
house and see how many we can crowd in there, and that'll be it, right, Jim?
I'm sorry, no, I can certainly look into it.
All right, so number 9, we put off to next week.
Okay. Right,
And now we
okay.
have environment contamination.
Administrator.
Update.
Whoops, hold on, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all in person. I'll be giving an update on PFAS activities within the health department. So I'm going to start on data sharing. So at last month's meeting, I had shared that we would be adding data to the property files, and I'm pleased to say that we have done that. So the PFAS data, as well as other water quality data from property files, is in the property files now. And as a reminder, this is data related to property transfers and voluntary sampling that is passed through the health department. I also have been asked to share a little bit more information about how we came to the decision to share the data in the property files. So I'll go into a little more details. I kind of glossed over that at last month's meeting. So our initial decision to not share the data was both because Mass DEP had asked us to not share unredacted results, as well as because of concerns about personal privacy. And as I mentioned in last month's meeting, we met with Mass DEP on February 5th, and we discovered that they had over 100 unredacted sampling reports available online associated with their island-wide source investigation activities. So the next morning, on February 6th, we reached out to Town Council to ask them if they had any concerns about us uploading well results into the property files, given the new information about unredacted results in Mass DEP's data portal. But what I neglected to share at last month's meeting was that there was a concurrent public records request, and we received a determination from the supervisor of records on February 18th, 2 days before last month's Board of Health meeting, and that determination instructed us to provide data to the requester. So even though we had already reached out to Town Council to ask them if we could share the data in light of what we had learned from Mass DEP's data sharing, Rocky and John met with our Town Council on February 20th. It took them a little bit of time to get in touch with Town Council. I believe they were on vacation at the time. So on February 20th, Town Council let us know that we could begin to upload data into the property files. And on that same day, we had a Board of Health meeting, and I shared that update. So my mistake was that I neglected to mention the public records request. And I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate that many members of the community worked hard to get access to this data. And the public records request did in part lead us to the decision to post data in the property files. And I apologize for not acknowledging the efforts and the hard work of the community members who had been seeking this data for a year plus. But the data is in the property files now. And if anyone would like to review that data with me, I am happy to discuss. I have a number of other updates. I think that promoting our private well regulations is of utmost importance. So in February, I met with the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers. I met with their executive group specifically. I think I shared that last time, but That led to a meeting with the folks at the Open the Door to Nantucket Real Estate website and booklet, and I met with them over the past month. And we've also scheduled a meeting with NAREB in May, and me, John, and Rocky will all be appearing there. And this will be to the entire membership of NAREB. And so this should help us reach all realtors on the island and will hopefully help promote our private well regulations. Couple of other updates before I get into the data itself. I met with 2 community groups over the past month. I also have a few updates from Mass DEP's investigations. So on February 25th, Mass DEP was on the island. I had the chance to meet with them for a couple of minutes. They sampled the geothermal well at the Fairgrounds campus, where we're speaking right now. They also sampled at, I believe, 3 addresses just west of town. So the geothermal well was non-detect. We also just got back today results from the sampling west of town. So I believe it was 3 addresses, 4 samples. 3 of the addresses came back as non-detect, and 1 address came back as 3.65 nanograms per liter. This data will hopefully be in Mass DEP's data portal soon. And then the Fairgrounds report is still pending. We've heard for a while that this data should be, or this report should be coming any day, and I think that will be the case soon. Very, very quick update on well 15. There's been discussions at other public meetings, and the only update I have at the moment is that we're preparing the area for the treatment system, and we're still on target to have the treatment installed before the summer during peak water demand time. All right, I'm gonna jump into the data a little bit. John, thank you for sharing the map. Just a note, this is not up on our website yet. It takes a little bit of time for this to make its way to the website, but this is in the agenda packet. So this should look familiar. This is pretty similar to what I shared last month, but there is a new result above 20 nanograms per liter in this map. And so that is the green circle that is west of town. This had a concentration of 50 nanograms per liter, and it is the highest in our data set so far. This is also close to where Mass DEP was sampling in February. I don't know all of the details on how Mass DEP decided where to sample, but it's good to see that this is an area that is on their radar. Pretty similar to last month's update. In this overall data set, about 36% of the samples are non-detect, or excuse me, about 30% of the samples have detectable levels of PFAS. And so a few takeaways I get from this data. I'll go over a few takeaways and then follow-ups that I plan to do based on this data. First takeaway, PFAS are throughout the island. That is definitely concerning. I believe that additional sampling may turn up additional detects, both below the 20 nanogram per liter threshold, as well as above the 20 nanogram per liter threshold. Just a reminder, there is no safe level of exposure to PFOA and PFOS, which are two of the most commonly detected PFAS in our data set. Another reminder that Mass DEP recommends sampling if you're 1 to 2 miles away from a source. If you think about Tom's Way and the airport, this includes a very large percentage of the island and probably even a bigger percentage of the island's population. So a couple of follow-ups that I'm hoping to implement over the next several months. I think that this data is informative, but one of the issues with this map is that it doesn't show our MCP sites. So I'm trying to think of ways to visualize the data from our MPC sites. This is where the highest concentrations of PFAS have been detected. And so I think it's really important to both share the data that's on our screen right now, but also visualize the data from the MCP sites. I also think there's a need for more sampling. Promoting our private well regulations is one way to do that, but I'm also thinking about ways that we can do additional sampling, perhaps targeted sampling of drinking water, and maybe looking at additional environmental media as well. One thing on my mind is surface water. I think that's one place that we could go from here. I think there's also a need for more educational resources, which I hope to develop. I think we need more information on treatment, especially at concentrations below the 20 nanogram per liter threshold. I'm hoping to engage some experts and maybe hold a community meeting on this topic and maybe other topics on how people can avoid or reduce exposures. Another thing that I'm thinking about for educational resources is biomonitoring and talking to your clinician about PFAS and resources for clinicians. A lot of these resources are likely available already, and we just need to compile them and get them out to the public. Excuse me. I will also continue to update this map. I will be here next month to have another update. We also need to think about ways to spread awareness that over 1/3 of wells in this data set have had PFAS in them. That is definitely concerning, and that is something that we need to get the word out about to the community. That's all for my update. I welcome any questions. Thank you.
You know I have
Yeah,
questions.
please.
So was the 50 parts per trillion in Nantucket?
No, the 50 parts per trillion is west of town. So it's in what's buffer number 3 right here.
Oh, okay. You said the green circle, and I was like, there are 3.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's that middle one.
Correct.
Buffer 3, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And then
Wow.
the treatment for the PFAS, it's going to be well 15 and 16. I feel like this information was sort of, I know it was mentioned at the capital programs meeting in August. It was August 29th, I believe. And then it sort of feels like it went away. I watched that meeting and saw that. And I sort of wonder why that information, it was mentioned at that meeting that all of these mid-island homes had tested positive and they had to bring water to them urgently. And that's why they were at the capital programs meeting. But then this PFAS town group meets all the time. And how did that information, because that was how I found out about some of the mid-island, like I knew about that a while ago and I don't understand. It sounds like you guys just found that out with your meeting before in February with Mass DEP. And if if the town PFAS group is meeting all the time, how did that information that there was these high numbers, the water department was bringing them water because there were high numbers, and yet the health department didn't know that this was all happening. I'm just confused, and I know that there's just a lot of new people, but like you guys are sit in that meeting, I believe. So how does that information not get shared?
Yeah, it's a great
It's
point.
confusing to me, and also as well, 15 and 16 are getting treatment, correct?
That is correct.
So it's going to be like $420,000 every 6 months to change the filters.
I don't have the cost, but if that's
I
what the
think
water
that's
director
what
said, then I
Mark
believe
Willett said. It was $210,000 every 6 months to change a filter. But I feel like there's all these meetings and somehow the health department didn't get this very critical information. And I don't know how to fix that, but it seems unfair that you guys were left out.
Yeah,
I'm not blaming you. I just feel like, why didn't they tell you?
You're right, and we have been obviously part of these meetings. John's been part of this group that meets as well as now Andrew. And, you know, there's a lot going on in this area. I think the town's been very proactive in trying to understand PFAS on Nantucket. And so, I mean, certainly there's possible that not everything's getting touched on in every meeting, but critical pieces of information like that, I really can't give you a direct answer as to why we didn't either have that information or weren't able to share it out earlier.
I don't blame you guys. I just feel like that information should have been shared. This group is, I guess, meeting very frequently. How we have these high numbers and we have to urgently bring water. That should have been first on their agenda.
It's a good point. Thank you.
Any other questions? I like having you present each.
I love it too. It's great to be
Helpful.
here.
Very helpful. Yeah.
Great addition. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Director's report.
Okay, I will be brief as always. So I want to first introduce Will Droheim. He's our new inspector. He's sitting right out there in the audience. He's joined us recently from the sewer department. Has a lot of great experience. Has worked on Martha's Vineyard and involved in inspections there and many other types of activities that we do here in the health department. So he'll be able to hit the ground running, and we're glad to have him. He took Kathy Flynn's place, who went back to Plus recently. Let's see. Heather just recently passed a state-level food safety course, and John, you'll have to give me the acronym for it again.
It's CPFS, which is Certified Professional in Food Safety. And she actually just took that exam today and passed, which is it's a tough exam and a big credential to have. As Rocky kind of just said, it's the credential that the state inspectors have. So we actually now have two of those certified professionals in food safety in our office. Heather and Sean was the first to get it. And Jake is also working on that credential currently right now. So I think this is a big accomplishment for our department to have this level of training, as I think it'll vastly improve aiding the state in foodborne illness investigations that we have on the island, and being able to identify things really quickly and be able to report them. So as well as food defense and safety. So yeah, I think it's a good accomplishment, and congrats to Heather. It's good.
Definitely. And speaking of Heather, she'll be teaching this Serve Safe class that is scheduled for April the 8th, I believe, and
Second.
it's the 2nd.
Yep,
okay.
starts April 2nd, yep.
And I think we already have, I know, over 10 that have signed up for it. So looking for a good turnout there, and being able to, it's good to be able to offer this. This is our second time since I've been here on the island to enable those that are working in the restaurant industry to take this certification.
How long are a certificate good for? You have to get recertified.
It's good for 5
5
years.
years, yeah.
Yep. So,
Then the mine is about to expire.
Oh, so there's probably still room in the course, Dr. McNabb, if you want to sign up.
No, I found the course was fascinating. The exam was actually quite difficult.
And we did talk previously about if Board of Health members are interested in maybe going along on an inspection or two when those kick up.
I would
think
encourage.
that
I would encourage.
certainly encourage you to do that, to see what the inspectors do. It's pretty comprehensive and a good learning experience for everyone. Let's see, we gave the HHS update to the Select Board on March the 5th, so we had a chance to talk about what we've been prioritizing at the Health Department, some of the areas we think we can improve in, as well as talking a little bit about our budget. So I think that went really well. And finally, measles, obviously in the news. Last time I looked, this a couple of days ago, there's still 301 cases nationwide. There haven't been any in Massachusetts since last summer, I believe. They had a case, and none on Nantucket. It's something we're paying close attention to. The hospital is going to offer a child vaccine clinic on April the 12th, and we've spoken to them about supporting their efforts in getting the word out. And certainly we're prepared if we should have a case on the island, but hopefully we don't. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions from the board? Any of the staff members? And I think it's a great suggestion that we talk to Rocky and go on some inspections.
Absolutely, just reach out and I'm happy to set that up for you.
And if you're interested, take the food safe course. It's quite interesting. You'll you'll look at food differently for for the rest of your lives. Okay, okay, does anyone want to go home?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you all next time. Oh, Mary, don't give me that bucket, please.
Yep.
So